Monday night, the 6th of March, and we have a weak weather system, weakish, that is moving through Pennsylvania and going to maybe put a little bit of snow from New York City down to about Philadelphia, maybe a little bit either side of that, but it won't amount to much. Winter storm warnings continue, guess where? In California. We've got advisories up in the Rockies. We'll be talking about that, taking a look at the weather for the rest of the week in the long range, all of that, and so much more that you'll be just totally amazed. All tonight on the Joe with Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in
West Babylon, of course.
In Southwest Suffolk County, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut,
tri-state area.
With everything you need this coming spring. They've got mulch, they've got sand, they've got topsoil, and just in case a winter storm should visit the area before it's all said and done, they have...
Well, they have salt. They have
they have salt. That's it, salt. So head over to Omni 6.
What about the snow blowers?
I think they've kind of moved them out now to get ready for spring, Joe. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And if they've moved them out to get ready for spring, you just know that we're going to get a late season snowstorm.
Well, you got to believe like all those places.
In fact, William Smith on the chat board says, we will get one storm before this winter's over. I don't worry. Sounds like something Alfred E. Newman used to say.
Yeah.
What, but me worry?
I don't know. They don't sell snow blowers down here, but in northeast Georgia, even though we do get snow here from time to time. But I imagine if you went to Home Depot or Lowe's right now, they probably took them out. I would think they would have taken them out.
They probably just gave up.
Yeah, they got all the spring stuff out.
Yeah. Well, you never know, Joe. You never know.
All right, so we have a cheap thrill system tonight. I think that's pretty much qualifies it. I mean, you can't even suffer the indignity of not having even a winter weather advisory being put up in New Jersey or wherever else that winds up snowing. I kind of think you could sort of draw a northwest-southeast line just north of New York City to about central Long Island on the north side, and then a northwest-southeast line from about Philadelphia to, say, somewhere between Toms River and Atlantic City. And those are the boundaries with all of this. But go ahead.
I said on Facebook, on my forecast on Facebook, I said, after midnight, a chance of a little light snow chiefly south of Interstate 287, which means that for somewhere like where I am in Putnam County, I told Renata this a little while ago, I said, I don't expect we're going to see a single flake out of this. Area south, yeah, there may be enough to, but I didn't even think that down south is going to be enough. I saw one forecaster, will not mention that person's name.
We never mention names here, but we do talk about it off camera.
But showing the various models, and the NAM had, and he must have been using the 18Z NAM. I don't recall seeing this on the 12Z NAM. 2.5 inches in New York. And
but what's the point? What is the point? I mean, look, we do it.
I was eating, and it was like, the old, or drinking. Remember the old Danny Thomas line when he was drinking something and somebody said something absurd like that?
But who cares?
I mean, that was.
No, I understand, but who cares at this point? I mean, we're different. We're a weather show. We show models. We fill in hours worth of time. Okay, and everybody here is pretty much savvy to the idea of what the models are doing. But when you're at TV at this point with the system basically on your doorstep, why even bother? It just forecast it. Forecast what you think and leave it alone. Who cares what the models do?
Because that doesn't work in TV. I might add in radio. I did 1010 winds here in New York for 2 years, the biggest radio station in the New York area. I was the morning meteorologist, and then the one winter that I was there, the winter of 93, 94. No, excuse me, 94, 95. There was a and here's a $5 word, Joe, a paucity of snow. There was hardly any snow that winter. And I actually got a phone call from not the news director, but somebody in the hierarchy above the news director, the executive producer or something like that, who was complaining to me. He said, you know, our ratings here are based primarily on bad weather. We need bad weather. If we don't get bad weather, we don't get big ratings. And he's talking to me as if I had the ability of being able to wave my arms or my fingers and produce a major snowfall or a major winter storm. And you know what I told him? I said, I'll do the best I can. That's that's
Right.
that's all you could do. But it's ratings. So if there's the slightest little bit of snow, and if there's the slightest little bit that there could be an accumulation somewhere, not everywhere, but just somewhere, you will see. And I did see this tonight on the bumpers, the promos for the evening news. Is that there's snow in the forecast? Details at 6. You know, that's how they grab the viewers. That's
I'm,
that's
I'm
that's
well,
how they do it.
no, and I'm well aware of that. I mean, I was watching David Muir, who, by the way, must have. I mean, just the first thing I noticed, with HD TV, it's like, who did his makeup tonight? Because they kind of missed. He's got this big bruise on the side of his cheek.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, then they took some shots where he's sort of straight on. We're very cruel in the television business. Welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Monday night. Anthony Orr, thank you for hitting Super Chat. First one out of the gate tonight is Anthony Orr, our resident hurricane statistician, I might add. Those of you who are lurking in the background, because we all know there are some of you who secretly lurk. By the way, if you do want to join the chat, apparently you got to search for where it says, chat on the YouTube page on your phone, okay? But if you look below the video, because there are several links to this show on YouTube. I don't know why they just don't have one universal link, but if you're pulling it up on your phone, there should be something on there on the bottom menu below where the video is, where it says chat, and you click on that, and then you could be part of the conversation, or be the subject of the conversation, however you want to put it. So subscribe to my YouTube channel with your Gmail account, and you won't miss a Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m., and Fridays and Saturdays we're off unless there's a storm lurking about. By the way, this particular system, and I was going to bring up the snow forecast map, there are winter storm warnings up for parts of north central Pennsylvania. But this is one of those things where you wind up where the system is crossing the mountains, and given the fact that there's no upper air support or minimal upper air support with this to begin with, and you don't have any kind of secondary really that's developing out of this, there's a fair amount of precip, Joe, on the radar that's going to produce 3 and 4, 5-inch amounts west of I-81 in Pennsylvania, and north of Route 80. But that all pretty much dries up by the time it gets to New Jersey, western New Jersey. Although we are seeing the Weather Service putting a couple of, what is that? I can't see. Some 3-inch amounts there on the Warren. I think that's Carbon County on the other side. County line, and also in northern Hunterdon County, we're seeing a 3-print there, and some 1s and 2s, coating to an inch, really. I think, and either way, it's not going to snow hard enough tonight, Joe, to put, even if it does snow in a lot of these areas, particularly around New York City and in the northern counties of New Jersey, where it would snow hard enough to accumulate on roads. It's just, it's probably just going to be light stuff. You need intensity to overcome the warm temperatures of the daytime and the not so cold temperatures at night in order to accumulate on road surfaces, and we just don't really have that today.
And there's a good question that's asked by John Charles. He said, how come they have accumulations in the ocean?
You know what? That's a really good question. I don't know why that is the case. I guess it's because of the way the digital graphic works, and when they put the information in, it just kind of does that. I know it does look a little bit bizarre, but if it makes you feel better, They do have accumulations over Lake Erie.
Yes.
So, and
There you
I
go.
don't think Lake Erie is frozen. I'm not so sure about Lake Ontario, but yeah, the same thing. Either that now he's not showing any snow accumulation in Lake Ontario, so I just wonder whether there's some kind of you know some kind of command that they have to put in to cut it off, and maybe it's not working. But it does look kind of silly. There's actually
We used to work with the on the WSI computer graphics we used to work with. They had something called the stencil, and you'd
I
stencil.
know I hated it.
You stencil, well, you'd stencil out, like with Lake Erie, you would stencil it out so this way you don't see the blue and you don't see the accumulations. You just get rid of it. That's all. But you're
There,
right. How
yeah,
you
there's
know
a 7. There's a 7 print. I don't know if that's on this map. 6, I think, might be where Bradford is in PA,
right? Yeah,
right along Route 6. It looks like that's where you see some of the bigger numbers out in PA. But again, if you look at where that is, and how the mountains in Pennsylvania work, the numbers really tail off once you go east of I-81, because that stuff's just going to, most of it's going to try to dry up.
right, right,
Me,
exactly. And,
yeah.
it's but again, I really I think it's distasteful to try to let people think that, oh my goodness, we're going to have snow tomorrow morning. I better watch because that's what they do. Yeah, there's snow in the forecast, but unless you live well west or well north and west of New York, you're not going to see much to get excited about. So
Watch New York City. By the way, Philadelphia's only had 0.4 of an inch of accumulated snow so far this winter, so they're not going to finish with the least snowiest winter on record because for them it's a 0. So they're not going to take that out. But watch New York City get half an inch and be 1/10 of an inch shy, and we'll have to just sit there and wait. Meanwhile, I'm just looking out west. There's actually some fair amounts showing up in parts of southwestern Minnesota, into northwestern Iowa, also back into South Dakota and mostly in South Dakota. A little bit lower when you get into North Dakota. Then they tail off, and then let's go to the snow capital of the winter here in the west. Some more big numbers in the Sierra Nevadas. By the way, they have had. It's really kind of funny, Joe. I was watching Bloomberg News over the weekend, and they had this climate special where they talked about the fact that it doesn't snow doesn't snow as much anymore. Where in California, and of course, they have received triple, okay, not double, triple their normal snowfall this winter in the watershed areas with those mountains, because all that's a lot of it's in spite of the fact that they've had tremendous rains this winter, but it's really the snow melt and the snowpack that they rely on for a lot of their water in California. And when they got to wait for this snow to melt, but it's going to be substantial because of how much it is, and they're putting down another 2 to 3 feet between now and Thursday evening, up through the Sierra Nevadas. And also look at the coastal ranges north of San Francisco on up into Oregon. Some 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot plus amounts showing up even there. But this is critical. This has been a critical year for California with respect to all that snow, because the drought really set them back in a big way, and now the snowpack is going to hopefully alleviate all of their most of their water concerns.
It could very well, yeah. But you said it's going to be a waiting game, and as soon as the snow melts, and God knows, first of all, before we start talking about the snow melting, when is the snow going to finally stop? That's the question.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really been a fascinating winter for that part of the country, because we've had that stretch from right around Christmas, just after Christmas time, for 3 weeks where we had endless rain, those big rainstorms that came in one after another, and they had some big snows in the Sierra Nevadas, had some of those storms. And then it just kind of flipped around to an extent, and the cold that was out in the west and the troughing just sort of rearranged itself where it favored more continuation of that endless moisture flow. But now we had cold air into the equation. And yeah, you're right. When does it stop? And if we'll look at the models to try to get a hint. Meanwhile, on the satellite tonight, it's getting dark across the eastern part of the United States as you see the sun setting. That arm swinging across, and that little system coming out of the Great Lakes and moving southeastward, some enhanced bright white clouds moving across upstate New York. Out in the west, the energy off the west coast continues to just pull Pacific moisture, wave after wave of Pacific moisture into the western part of the United States. Still ample amount of cold air, so they're going to be going at it for a while. Watches and warnings tonight. We have winter storm warnings, as I said, for a few of the counties in north central PA. Advisories surrounding that. I believe there are 2 counties in New Jersey. Let me just double check. Yes, it looks like Hunterdon County, Hunterdon, Warren County are both under winter weather advisories. Okay. And then you see the winter weather advisories in northeastern PA. We also have advisories and winter storm warnings in South Dakota, where we potential for some 1 foot plus amounts. Advisories in North Dakota, western South Dakota, Montana, northeastern Wyoming, and there are those winter storm warnings for the Sierra Nevadas and for the coastal range of California. WPC for tonight. I actually pulled the probability map for at least 1 inch. Okay. I took a step down, Joe, 1 inch. And you can see in that advisory area in New Jersey, those 2 counties, there's a 50 to, no, I'm sorry, there's a 70 to 80% chance. No, take it back. 60 to 70% chance. 60 to 70% chance for a whole inch. Okay. And in the red areas, it's 80 to 90% for a whole inch. And we go out west, where we're going to find big numbers in South Dakota, into North Dakota, back up into northeastern Wyoming. And there you go. The daily, let's show the 80 to 100% line from the coastal ranges of California to the Sierra Nevadas. Again, this is the probability for at least 1 inch. So why don't we just play fair and go the probability? Let's go 6. Okay. And you can see it's kind of shrinking with some of that stuff from those winter storm warnings already happened. So we'll probably see it wind down a bit. But I know there's got to be more in the future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question. Just because we're coming up now on St. Patrick's Day, which I always say is but that's here in the Northeast or here in the tri-state area.
Yeah,
I use that as the benchmark.
Yeah, the interior probably, the interior gets a little more time.
Yeah. So we shall see if there's anything. Although the clock continues to tick and wind down, and as we now talk about the long range and all of the excitement that was being generated by the potential biggie for this weekend, I guess the biggie has suddenly, if it were a balloon, I guess somebody just poked a hole because all of the air is leaking out very rapidly.
Look, if you can't do it now with this blocky pattern, you're not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. If the atmosphere can't set up in an advantageous way for the Northeast, and you know something, it's highly likely that it won't because of the fact that it hasn't all winter except for that one minor window last week that opened up for 24 hours? Right. Except for that one minor window. Why should it change now? Here we are, the 6th of March. As you said, the clock is ticking loudly.
Yeah. Yes.
So, anyway, we've got, just looking ahead to all of this, Fridays.
And the local TV stations all proclaiming chance of snow for, overnight, tonight, tomorrow. Tune in, find out. And I'm yelling at the TV, yelling back at the set. I said, you shouldn't be talking about the snow. The big story this week, at least here in the tri-state area, is going to be the wind. And it's not just going to be, not just tomorrow, not just Wednesday, but I mean all this week. Yep. All this week, the wind is going to be active. And tomorrow and Wednesday, winds will be gusting past 30 miles an hour. and people be walking on. I could just see now. I'm picturing in my mind, a couple of people on Fifth Avenue and 47th Street or whatever, and like he said, well, they said it was going to snow. There's no snow here, but boy, that wind, man. What did they say? Think about it. Say about that. That's the story. That's the headline. You should be headlining your weather with, not the snow, the wind. Thank you.
Yes, and
rant over.
Yeah.
We're going to make this a nightly feature. Joe Rayo's rant of the night.
I don't want. You know what, Joe? We live in an angry world as it is. Do we want to really add to that anger?
No.
By the way, Daniel Fitzsimmons, Joe, and you might be able to answer this better than I can. Do you know of any snow related weather sites for the U.S.? I mean, in terms of getting statistics, snow amounts, Climo, that kind of thing.
The only thing I could suggest, I mean, in the New York area, you just go to the Upton site and look under Storm Archive, and I think you can see all of the snowfalls for the last 5-6 years broken down into different counties.
Have you ever gotten anything from the National Climactic Center in Asheville, North Carolina? I could almost drive to it. It's only a few hours from here.
Have I ever gotten anything?
Yeah.
No, I've never.
I've never ordered anything from them.
Well, when I worked for a private forecast service, that was the big thing. The lawyers, the insurance, the claim adjusters, they all came to us and they said, we'd like you to write some kind of a narrative summary about what happened. So we call up the National Climactic Center. We called them so often. I think the guy in the sales department knew, the woman there, on a first name basis. And we were getting all kinds of stuff being mailed to us or sent to us. And these are LCDs, local climatological data sheets. And if you bring them to court, sometimes you had to get them certified, or you had a ribbon and seal attached to them.
Right.
And they cost a pretty good amount. I mean, if you needed them, you had to pay for them. But personally, I never had to pay because I never ordered any of that stuff.
I was just kind of curious because I never did either. And I mean, honestly, I don't, except for going from Weather Service site, Daniel, I've told you, you have to go from site to site, check their Climos pages, Climos stuff on each page. It's a tedious task, but it's all, it's mostly there. But you just have to take the time out to look. All right, let's go. Let's run through these models really quick because I'm telling you, I'm just not. It's amazing. This is why you don't get excited in the you recognize the pattern that's going on. You look at it and you say that, okay, I could see how this could happen, but you have to also remember that there's also a lot of ways that it won't happen. And in particular, at least looking at the model runs today, first off with the system on coming in for Saturday, the cutoff low on the GFS is further north. I mean, if you're going to want a snowstorm, you need that cutoff to be, off the Delaware coast, off the Maryland coast, off the Virginia coast, and kind of tracking northeastward from there. Not happening. The cutoff low is actually sitting right over Long Island, too far north. The other problem here is we still, there's no ridge in the west. In spite of the fact that there's no deep trough up and down the west coast, there is energy coming into the northwest, which kind of flattens the flow. And so any system in the east is going to have a real tough time trying to drop southeastward anyway. The fact that there's another system behind this, and you see it there, moving through the Great Lakes, another cutoff right behind it for early next week, around Tuesday or so, and that forms a cutoff offshore. Now, this could conceivably be further west as we get closer to time. But one of the questions, Joe, when I looked at all of this at this point with the blocky high kind of breaking down a bit, where's the cold air? Where is all this cold air that was advertised on the models? And by the way, look at the European at 200 a day, day 9. Look at the West. Okay, look what's in the West. It's astounding this winter. anytime you get even a short break where the trough in the west just flattens out, just disappears or flattens out, it goes. Here it is. It's kind of not there around day 6 or 7, and it just comes right back. Any chance it gets, it just drops right back in. It's astounding that this pattern just will not. The broad nature of this pattern just will not let go.
It's kind of like what I've said here in our area. There are just some winters where you get a tremendous amount of snow, and it seems like it'll snow at the drop of a pin. Even minor disturbances, even little dinky little systems roll along and drop a quick 1 or 2 inches in those kind of winters. And in the West, we're seeing something similar. I mean, it's been an ongoing winter of storminess, an ongoing winter of troughs, so longitudinal troughs along the Pacific coast. And even when there's a break, you say, oh, here's a break now, and then all of a sudden suddenly this little thing oh, more snow, more rain. It's been that kind of a winter for the West. And I assure all of you snow lovers, you are so saddened by the way things have turned out for this year. I assure you, your day will come. This is not, I've seen, Joe, like online articles about the fact that the lack of any snow in the I-95 car. Right. This is just the first sign, the first signal that
it'll never snow
again,
and
it'll never snow again, or whatever.
See, I always take it. When stuff like that, when there's enough of those kind of articles being get written, that's the point where it's set up for those people to be although they don't care because they just don't care, but to maximally embarrass them for writing an article like that in the first place. I can tell you this. I think if you go back to sometime before Christmas, I remember seeing an article writing about the snowing in California and the Sierra Nevadas and in the Cascades was going to disappear. It just was no longer going to be.
It was an aberration,
yes,
folks. All of that snow that's happening now, you wait until January and February, and you'll be begging for snow. That's basically what they were saying back in December.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So you know what? That's why I don't pay any attention to that, because that's garbage journalism. And in fact, in most of those articles, when you read them, there's no science in there other than they might say that according to climate experts, whoever they are, blah blah blah, and then they'll talk to. I read an article like this, and then they'll talk to a snowblower salesman who'll say, "Well, I haven't saw a snowblower all year because the weather's too warm." All right, yeah, that's relevant to what's going on climate wise. Anyway, if you look at the GFS, it's the same idea here. The cutoff for Friday to Saturday, again, too far north, goes right over Long Island and out. Then there's one right behind it. This one cuts off, much like the European, off the Virginia coast. Maybe that it's far out means that it could come in further east. So there's actually two systems in, but as I said, no cold air, deep trough back out in the west, which eventually does pull out, makes another cutoff or two in the east, down the road in the long range. I don't know, Joe. I'm just kind of at this point, I just want to throw up my hands. And by the way, what you said about in a snowy winter snowing at the drop of a pin, I would just point out that in a snowy winter, a system like this tonight, where they'll forecast a coating to an inch or two, would wind up producing like 3 to 6 everywhere.
Yeah. It would be what I used to call when I was at News 12. Every once in a while, I said I would end up getting a Gomer pile. And that is, I'd go on the air on the 10 o'clock show. I'd say, okay, tomorrow morning, no problem, coating to an inch. That'll be about it. Wake up the next morning, look out the window. And as you just said, Joe, there's like 3 or 4 inches on the ground, still snowing steadily. And the only thing I hear is in the back of my head, Jim Neighbors, the late great Jim Neighbors, surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yes.
And that's right, that's true, and you're absolutely right. If it was that kind of a winter, this winter, what we're looking at right now for tonight, to use the words of a colleague of mine, Jack Boston, former colleague of mine, this is nothing but diddly squat. Yeah, that in most winters that would be, but in one of those winters where we've had snow after snow after snow. A system like tonight would bring, you're right, 2 to 4, 3 to 5 inches of snow. It's not going to be that way because it's just not one of those winters.
Yeah. Adam Lowe, I really don't care about the MJO. Honestly, I really don't. I'm
The
serious.
Mojo. The Mojo.
I have no.
Yo, it's in Mojo Phase 8.
Yep, exactly. We're at 90 likes, so 10 shy of 100. So if you could get us to 100 likes, that would be lovely. Okay, so here we go. Just to run through the GFS. Here's tonight's system. Whoopee goes by, gone before daybreak. Then, as Joe said, the wind is the big deal because this thing kind of re-energizes a low that's way out in the ocean, and you can see how tight the gradient, relatively tight gradient, a lot of isobars. I'm now into Thursday, and we're still kind of blowing away. And then here comes this low, and oh yeah, I know, just like you said yesterday, Joe, primary to the lakes.
Yep.
Primary low goes into southern Michigan, tries to redevelop there off the North Carolina coast. And of course, you see it's got a low over eastern Long Island by the time we get to Saturday afternoon. Dark blue snows in Connecticut and Massachusetts. I'm not sure that I believe any of that at this point. And then that goes out, and then there's more energy, gets suppressed to the south until another cutoff swings around. And then you get, I think I saw was a 966 low there at like 36 and about, I don't know, 70 or so, and then it goes instead of lifting northward, it goes straight east. A little bit of snow there on the northwest side if you want a cheap thrill around the 16th. Then that goes away, and then got more energy trying to do stuff in the northeast. Beyond that,
I mean, it's just unending this week with the wind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like one windy day or one breezy or windy day after another. That's what they should be talking about, is the wind, but they're not talking about it because they want to talk about the snow. So they talk about the snow. Go ahead.
Right.
Well,
exactly. Meanwhile, just a real check of Mrs. Ann Sambles. We might as well. We haven't been visiting with her very much this winter. Just to see the weekend, what it does. I mean, look, on the ensembles, Joe, you got the primary goes to like northern Ohio. Okay, well, that's fine. And then, you see the redevelopment that's off there. There's a large cluster of storms sitting around and south of the 4070 benchmark. I can't get too I just cannot get excited. What is that going to do? I mean,
yeah, it's not going to do anything for us.
Is there going to be just an arm of moisture, like a stick of moisture? Because it's not going to be widespread precip coming into what should be a cold environment. I don't know how cold it's going to be, but no matter.
And you know what happens now? Now everybody was jumping up and down. Oh, March 11th and 12th, March 11th. They'll look at that and they say, oh, well, there's another system that's right behind. And that might do, it's never ending.
Yeah, I'm going to bring us up back on this full screen here. I just want to, hold on a second. I just want to check to see, because I did not look at the European snowfall map for, okay, so this was this afternoon. So let me look at the 18Z here. And all right, so the 18Z European, Joe, was actually a little bit further north. So it gives 2 inches to New York City. So if that verifies, it puts them over the top, and it won't be the least snowiest. It'll be the second least snowiest. Well, possibly the third. No. What are we at? What is it at? 2.2? So
2.2.
2.2 would take you to 4.2 if this happened. And that would not make it. Then it would be number 3. You have to get to 5 inches, I think, to pass the next one. Because there's a 3-inch or something winter there someplace.
Well, in 2020 we had 4.8 inches, I think, didn't we?
Oh, did we? Was that what the number was?
4.8? I don't even think we got 5 inches that winter.
How did we survive that winter?
I don't know. I recall there was one storm that brought maybe 2 or 3 inches in a shot, but like the rest of the winter was like shot to hell. And that was the winter we had snow on May 9th.
Right. Well, I'm just looking at today's European, by the way, gives. Well, I got to do a little subtracting here. It gives Boston close to 2 feet. It gives them 24 inches. It gives Lowell, Mass almost 27. Providence 7.2. Hartford 7.4. An inch, 3.5 in New York City. 2.5 at Islip. A little bit more in Western Jersey and into Eastern Pennsylvania. I mean, who knows? It never gets anywhere in the short range with these storms that the models have been showing in the longer range. They just never ever get into the short range this winter. So I can't get excited about stuff like that in a winter like this. I just can't. And listen, if you hear me talking like this, it's bad, okay? Because I'm forever the optimist trying to find that door for snow lovers and make them happy, and can't do it. You just can't do it this winter. 122 likes. Wonderful. So who's got Briller Jeopardy tonight? You or me?
I think I have it tonight.
All right, let's get it going because I got stuff to do.
All right, let me just quickly get to it. And somebody, Joe, was on the chat board. I just lost him while I was looking for Briller Jeopardy. Talking about how does in New York City, what is the effect of the wind? And I believe it's the Venturi effect, where the wind funnels down the streets. They're like narrow corridors, and because of that, if you're walking in Manhattan, for example, and you get a gust of wind, because of the situation regarding the buildings, the winds actually are stronger. You get those stronger wind gusts there. Anyway, here we go. Let's see. Here are the weather extremes for Mount Washington. This is for Mount Washington.
Lord.
So how many of you know Mount Washington? How many are you up on the Mount Washington weather trivia? Highest temperature ever recorded on Mount Washington, Joe. And a bonus, I guess, if you get the year and the month.
I'm going to say 62.
All right, I'm looking at the chat board here.
Okay.
Anybody else have an idea of what would the?
Daniel Fitzsimmons is 75. Johnny Quest 78. Bobby Livingsworth 53.
And David Carter got it. David Carter, you hit it right on the nose.
72.
72 recorded in July of 1975. Okay, so now the next big question: the lowest temperature ever recorded at Mount Washington.
Well, they just had the lowest 850 temperature ever recorded at Mount Washington at minus 35. So I don't know. Minus 35.
I'll give you a hint. Craig Carlberg came this close to getting it on the nose.
All right. Well, the chat board is moving at 100 miles an hour. I can't see what Craig Carlberg said.
He said minus 46.
Minus 46.
And Tina T.
No, he said minus 48, Joe.
What, Craig Carlberg?
Yeah, I just found it. Minus 48.
Oh, minus 48?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he said minus 48.
And Johnny Quest says minus 47.
And Johnny Quest hits it right on the nose.
On the nose, Johnny Quest. You got it.
January 1934, minus 47. I might also point out, in February of 1934, New York City got the lowest in Central Park of minus 15. So 1934 must have been a cold month.
I guess. And then it warmed up and rained. But
that's right.
Yeah. And is this the next one? Is the final one?
No, actually, he gave 4 tonight. This is number 3. What months has Mount Washington not had a low below zero? What months have there not been below zero temperatures
so
at Mount Washington?
Months being the key here, because that means that there's more than one, correct?
Correct.
So I guess the obvious answer would be to say June and July. July and August. So, but something tells me that one of those months is wrong. So I'll say July and August, but I'm thinking one of those months is wrong. Correct? Am I right?
Actually, no. Those months are correct. There are 4 months, believe it or not. I mean, it's a meteorological summer.
So what was
and
it June, July, August, September?
September. I was wondering whether or not you were going to say May, perhaps, but no. It's June, July, August, and September are the only 4 months out of the 12 that Mount Washington has not had 0 degree or below 0 degree temperatures. And the last, and certainly not least, in 1968-69, the winter of 68-69, Mount Washington recorded their greatest annual snowfall. How much snow fell in 68-69 up at Mount Washington?
I will say 250.
Whoa.
Too high?
Oh,
Too low?
too low.
Okay. Way too low?
Yeah, pretty much.
Bobby Livingsworth said 333 inches.
Well, that was a as Fred Mertz would say, nice try though.
Right.
Still too low.
Bogey's Best Bees says 469.
Still too low.
Hudson Valley Weather said 495.
Still too low.
Really? Wow. 541 from Michael Azera.
Getting close, but still too low.
Paul Roman says 610.
I love Coin Pig 866. No, that's way over.
Paul Roman says 610.
Brutus Outdoor Services coming even closer. Now Northern Grace, the closest so far. With I know 55 is double nickels show. What's 3 5s? Triple 5s, I guess.
Oh, that would be triple nickels.
Yeah. Steve LaPointe, if we were playing by price is right rules, you would be closest of all, but unfortunately you'd also be over.
Oh, okay. Bum bum ba-da. So what's the answer?
566.
566. Well, Michael McGuire said 560.
Yeah.
Oh, and Chuck Cardillo said 564. So I mean, if this were the showcase showdown, and if it was within $100 of the retail price of his own showcase, Joe, he would have won both showcases.
You realize what 566 inches is? 47 feet.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's still melting.
Yes.
All right, look, we got 100. I didn't have a good night's sleep last night, so I just wanted to go to bed. So 134 likes. Thank you so much for those of you who hit the like button. Anthony Orr, our super chat hit for the night. Thank you, sir. And thanks to all of you that have tuned in tonight. Thanks to everybody on the chat board. We love you. And we'll be back tomorrow night at what time, Joe? What time will we be back tomorrow night?
I think 7:35, Joe.
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show, as it is every night, brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. They're getting ready for spring, and so should you. 6317-561-125 for the best prices in town, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Good night, all.
Good night, all. Good night, Mr. Rayo, and good night, everybody.
See you later. Wait.